If you are receiving this, that's awesome.
Hey, this is Kyle Hebert, voice actor, and it's been a while since I've had a podcast. See, the Intergalactic Boombox is on a little hiatus. I've been very, very busy with convention appearances and work, and to be completely transparent, I have been suffering from writer's block and a little bit of pod fade, aka burnout.
Oh, hey.
Yes, gets.
Dude, you're already bringing the whole room down, man.
I'm just being honest here.
Well, I was wondering, we haven't been flying the spaceship around it's been months.
Months?
Yeah, months. Yeah, what he said.
Well, the show will come back, okay? Don't worry, guys. The show will come back. I just don't know when.
Okay, Vig McVig Pants. I mean, we're supposed to do our dad jokes at the beginning of every episode.
Well, look, I'm sorry. I got bigger fish to fry. Okay, so AI is like a really hot topic right now, and its effect on the entertainment industry and society as a whole. I'm flipping through Twitter, and I decided to hold a Twitter Spaces talking about AI and its effect on the voice acting community. And I had a lot of good feedback from industry people, from fans, from fellow podcasters. And I wanted to take this time to issue a special episode of the Boombox podcast where I play back audio clips from the Twitter Spaces I held talking about AI.
That sounds pretty serious, bro.
Well, it is serious. You have voice actors saying, I don't consent to my voice being used in some fan-made, machine-driven content. Pushback from fans and entitlement saying, you're not fun. We should be allowed to do whatever we want. And it's like, no, that's my voice. I don't consent to my voice being hijacked by a machine and manipulated into content that I don't approve of. There's a lot of ethical implications going on.
So, no dad jokes then?
No shiggles. No dad jokes. Not this time.
Fair enough.
Like I said, this is a special episode of the podcast featuring audio clips from a recent Twitter Spaces audio stream. You're going to hear music under this whole episode, and the reason is actually a really good one. The first person we're going to hear from is fellow actor Ben Diskin, and he said, hey, would you by chance be playing music or sound effects underneath our clips? So that makes AI harder to scrape the data. Ooh, that's clever. So there's going to be music during all this, but now you know why. So anyway, first up, voice actor Ben Diskin.
There's kind of two sides to this issue. One of them is the work itself from like a perspective of just the actor working for studios. And then the other one is this more public issue that we're seeing playing out on Twitter right now. For anybody who's listening and maybe isn't aware, before AI was even a concept, something that was even feasible, studios hire us, and in exchange for payment, we perform for them. So meaning what the clients own are the recordings for those characters. What they don't own are the actual voice itself. So they don't own like your vocal print. They own just the audio recording that has been done for them. So even these large companies don't actually own our voices. And the other thing is, this is not a problem that is just going to affect voice actors. We are, along with podcasters and YouTubers, we're just on the front lines. This is coming for everybody. There are already scam artists out there hacking people's WhatsApp accounts, stealing voice memos, and creating convincing, or at least convincing enough, clones of just regular people's voices and using them for scams to trick their parents or their uncles into giving them money. I mean, this is a real problem, and it goes way beyond just the entertainment industry. So I urge anybody listening to this to understand it's not just a bunch of whiny entertainment industry snobs going like, ooh, boo-hoo. Like, no, this is a real problem that's going to affect everybody on the planet unless it really gets proper regulations put in place.
Here's fellow podcaster David Meadis, host of Meadis Pod and Fun Fact Friday with Leela and Dave.
I just did an audition for a role. It was like a live audition over Zoom. So they asked, do you have any questions? And I asked specifically, I was like, if I do get this role, that y'all don't do anything with my voice with AI, correct? And she was her company is very vehemently against using anybody's voice for AI, any kind of AI content in their production whatsoever. So at least there's companies out there that have that mindset.
Good.
It's good to hear. I feel like it's really going to come down a lot to the social media companies, YouTube, Twitter and like community policing, like the community notes on Twitter, where people can say, hey, this is AI. And like maybe there'll be a tag, this is an AI created thing where this perhaps these voices are not really the people they appear to be, so that the community can tag it when somebody makes something using somebody recognizable like your voice. So that way people can obviously already tag you in it and say, hey, did you do this? And you can say no. Maybe they can make avenues for people who do have public profiles to do the equivalent of a copyright strike. This is purporting to be me, but it's not. So at the very least, they'll tag it like they do, like on any video on YouTube that has anything to do with COVID-19, it has the COVID-19 facts link underneath it. Maybe they could have something like that. If this has been reported to be AI generated, take it with a grain of salt. At least there would be that, I think maybe we can get the social media companies to, if we can push them to do something like that, it would be helpful in this whole arena.
Yeah, like the thing I was linked to today, the YouTube channel from this guy puts up anime character stuff where they take the dub voices and just make them rap.
Right.
I mean, it's amusing and everything. And it does say AI in the title of each video, AI cover.
Right.
It's like, all right, well, at least they're forthright about that.
Right.
But there's nothing in the description saying, oh, yes, consent was given by the original performer. And even if they did put that, it's like, well, no, I did not consent to that. So, nope, take that down.
Yeah.
Tried to message the content creator about that, saying, I do not consent. Please remove this content. I'm letting the actual content rights holders know about this.
Right.
And I did, and they responded to my text real quick saying, thank you.
There's remix culture and there's derivative works and everything, but when this is kind of stepping over a line when it comes to that, because, people clip stuff up and whatnot, but the words were never actually said by you. It's not like they took a clip of you and then just rearranged it. They are literally putting words in your mouth, and that's a whole different arena.
Within the past few days, seeing all this go down and then having a fellow voice actor basically bullied off Twitter.
I see the tweets about it now.
Real popular, sweet, and awesome person. Erica Lindbeck, known from Persona video game series and many other things, very well established and everything. And, this content came out there and she did not consent, let them know. It's like cockroaches, right? You remove the content from one place, it pops up somewhere else.
And then you got to worry about the Streisand effect. Like, since it's popular, since it's getting clicks, people are going to double down on it. It's going to get worse. Because you can run the AI on a home computer. You don't even have to use one of the services. There's ways you can just run it on your own computer. So it's not like you can go after the AI services to get them to sign a pledge to not do certain things, because, somebody with a real good NVIDIA card can just run it on their computer.
And isn't it as simple as just typing in a query on ChatGPT, really, at this point?
It's getting there. And the voice modeling is getting ridiculously good. But the plus side to that is that if you do ever, get recorded saying something that might not be, so you'll be, that was just AI. Somebody just said. So there's always that defense now.
Right. That wasn't me.
That wasn't
I
me.
didn't say that.
Somebody AI'd that's in jest, but it's a real sticky situation, and the copyright stuff's going to get real hairy here real soon. But I know that any auditions I do for anybody from now on, I'm going to get it in writing that they're not going to use my voice to train anything, which I've got a lot of public audio out there already. Somebody could already do it, but
I was happy to see on the audition copy for the mobile projects that I direct for actually specifically state it will not be used in AI. And that made me feel good. And hopefully that will become more of a staple. It's like, hey, throw this in there, whether it's the actor or whether the talent agency representing them, whatnot. Everyone is well aware that this stuff is going down and it's a problem and it's an issue and it's got to be addressed.
It needs to be, and especially in the more amateur voice acting communities, which, that's my level. Everybody needs to be preaching to everybody else. Don't let them wave a little bit of money in your face and let this happen, because enough people do that and it starts to become, well, everybody else is getting money for this. Why don't I get money for it? we got to stand strong together, all the way from the people getting $20 for a small thing up to, your level, ultra professional. If everybody bands together and says, I'm not taking this job if you're going to train AI on my voice, if everybody says that, then the companies will just be like, no, okay, this is a no-go.
Studios and the clients themselves have to make hard choices. It's like, well, all right, are you going to just keep on fishing until you get people that are just desperate enough to take? It's like, oh, you're going to pay me a whole $50?
And that is one of the problems, though, because if the AI gets good enough, you can take that $50 actor and make it sound good if you've got a good enough algo.
Right.
So that may become a problem. But I think with CG, they can do so much, but they still hire actors. Even if they've got a CG version of that actor in their computer, they still hire the guy, to do the real role, because people like really listening to Kyle Hebert. They really like watching, I don't know, who are the kids into these days? Chris Hemsworth? I don't know.
Let's get Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Tom Cruise. I don't see this getting fixed anytime soon, and I don't see it getting easier either. But if everybody sticks together and the big name people try and get everybody in lockstep of we're not going to let this happen to our industry, then I think it'll be okay. And people want to listen to real people. They want to see real people. So
I would think so. I mean, I made a joke with fellow voice actor DC Douglas at the convention we were at in Houston last weekend. I said, you know what? What if we're like the last generation of convention guests? I was the actual human voice of this character.
In the future conventions are going to be computers sitting on a convention floor with a printer that prints out an autograph.
That's right. Step up and enter the character autograph you'd like from ChatGPT. And it'll
Table selfies with a MacBook.
Here's a non-industry perspective from _Mika60_.
I was like a minor in sociology in college, so I pay a lot of attention to how technology impacts different sectors. And this is definitely one of and because this is my hobby sector, I feel like it's very, very close to home. I'm not an aspiring voice actor. I'm not anybody in the industry, but I've been in fandom spaces for more than 2 decades, sometimes dwell in writing, sometimes dwell in a little bit of art. But just watching kind of the whole situation, I feel like it's pretty obvious that I think AI matters are kind of the ethical question of our time, of our generation and beyond. I think from an observer standpoint, and as somebody who's really, really invested in humanities in general, Susanna did touch upon this. It's really disheartening to see that technological innovations, which are supposed to improve our livelihoods, are actually kind of invasive towards them and potentially devastating towards them. I think it's really important, like you said, to continue bringing awareness, just so that we minimize the financial, economical, sociological, in the case of today, psychological impacts that this will have on people in the future. I'm not sure how much you know about AI invading other spaces similar to writing and art, but obviously this discussion has been pretty prevalent in the artist space for a long time.
Yeah.
And right now, I feel like everybody's just waiting for regulation. There's actually a lot of discussion in the writing spaces because there has always been constant suspicion, and I personally suspect this is correct, that they've been scraping things like fan fiction sites and probably even social media sites, which are kind of semi-public domain, to learn, how to communicate in a human way from a writing standpoint. So it's been hard for people to make that argument that technology shouldn't be doing that. However, if there's anything that could potentially speed up, expedite this process, I actually think that it's going to come from the performing arts. It's going to come from actually voice actors. It's going to come from physical actors. It's going to come from music, because these are more public facing in some ways. And I think especially in voice acting and acting, these are attributes that are very, very much possessed. Your vocal cords, your voice boxes are organs, and what comes out and what results, it needs to be consented. This is a pretty extreme example, but if we can't take somebody's blood or take somebody's organ without written consent or donation, then why are people feel like they are entitled to people's voices? I feel like that's just something so physical and so almost traumatic that until it happens to you, you may not even realize what a terrifying implication that is. And it's similar to the Black Mirror example that Susanna gave as well. It actually is a pretty good perspective on kind of the dystopian nature of everything.
Well, I wonder if people that are doing and putting and distributing this kind of content out there, if it even hits their conscience when they're doing it, or even if it's after the fact. They go, oh my gosh. If it's like an Oppenheimer thing, we're about to see this movie from Chris
Exactly.
Nolan about the creator of the nuclear bomb, and he basically, it ruined his life. He it's like, hey, let's solve this World War II problem, and it's like, boy, did we! But look at the cost.
No, the consequences are pretty dire. I think people in the industry are starting to not mince words about it, which is a good thing. But I just want to also inform anybody that's working in these industries that even from a third-party perspective, even from observers' perspective, there's a lot of support for you guys. And people are kind of staying less silent about it now because more and more people are educated in what this could mean for them and their future children and things like that. So I really hope that there are guilds in the performing arts will be the ones to really stand forward and take a stance. I remember Midas mentioning maybe social media companies will be the platforms that need to initiate regulation. I also hope that is the case. I think that is indeed the most effective starting point. I'm not sure if I trust that they will do it, but especially like you said, TikTok is all about the bot VO. Once it starts invading user rights and user agency, I wonder if either governments will force them to accept the regulation or they will initiate it themselves. I'm not sure. Just from a fan perspective, I really hope that support for what needs to happen to control and really just like educate people on like how this will impact their own lives in the future will just continue and expand, and hopefully the fan, quote unquote, maybe I shouldn't call them fans. I saw another Sean Chiplock, another voice actor, actually say you're being an opportunist, not a fan.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that was a great quote. I really hope that they recognize that this is a role you're playing when you do this to people who are trying to entertain, who are trying to make a living, not trying to harm anybody, but you're harming them back.
Instead of worried about self-interest, are you really what meets the definition of a fan? Or is this just self-entitlement, something that's going to serve your own purposes and not even think or care about implications or consequences for those involved or those around those involved?
It has very, very long chain reactions. Every time you do something like this and you're like moving certain dials forward, but most of them are not good ones.
Doesn't just affect entertainment or art. It can affect you on a very personal, visceral level. If AI voices are being cloned and used to scam you or your family
misinformation
out of money. Yeah.
It can be your relative that's next. We haven't even touched the surface of it, I feel like.
The tech bros of the industry that are seed funding all of these AI projects, maybe they'll take a step back and think, not just blindly throw billions of their disposable cash at something just because it's going to make money, but actually think, it's like, this could affect me, my family, my friends, my loved ones in all walks of life, not just the entertainment world.
Yep, 100%.
Here's Crunchyroll voice actress Suzanne DeKarma.
I recently watched the new season of Black Mirror, and if you've seen it, they've got that first episode, Joan is Awful.
Yes.
And one, great episode, great acting, great writing, blah, 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 blah. We love it. But really, it's more about the bigger picture when it comes to AI. And as a person who has lost a lot of work recently to AI, I feel like more and more people need to be, I guess, made aware of just the layers that goes into when it comes to, one, reading your contracts, to what all AI can do and what all it can ruin to us as people, as human, and as artists.
So can you go into more detail? How did you lose work? Were you hired for a project and then they just have the rights to your recording tracks, or how did that work?
No. Thankfully, we were able to be like, no, we don't want you to do that. We do not consent. However, because it just saves emails, they just decided to do like with, I'm guessing it's just some kind of already pre-made AI machine where when they give scripts, they can just feed the scripts in there, and whatever changes they can make, it's just, the press of a button rather than, can you change this character to be a little younger, a little older, or, we had a typo here, or things like that, which on a business standpoint, I can definitely understand it. From what I'm speaking of is this was for like an e-learning client. So a lot of kids will listen to lessons that some of us will read and voice over and things like that. So they're just pretty much replacing us with AI. Just, saves time, saves money. But my big concern is, as somebody who also used to be a teacher, is how are you going to keep those kids connected? I haven't really heard too much where AI is super convincing yet, but unless you're putting on, one of those like Fortnite videos and you're just putting the lesson in there for the kids to watch the Fortnite videos like they do on TikTok, I just don't see how they're going to stay connected. And by the end of that, when, let's say if AI just takes over, you're losing human connection. And that's what keeps us connected with these characters that we love, as fans, and what keeps us connected to stories and ultimately each other.
And it's kind of ironic and funny to me that on YouTube and TikTok, the trend is to have AI generated VO for a lot of these videos. And it sounds hokey and super cheesy, but it's caught on. Even the content creators, the owners of the channels are having their voice. I guess they're speaking the words they want to have on the video, but they're having a voice replace them on there. It's like, why would you choose to do that? That's an odd choice, but okay.
Right. And I think using the TikTok as an example would be, well, they know people are going to watch it. And of course, the more views, the more followers, the amount of times I've seen the same Reddit stories over and over, just different games or a different voice. Maybe they have it to somebody baking a cake. That's clearly just for monetary value. So it's not really serving too much of a purpose, except for people who just get stuck in the loop of scrolling,
Sure.
Which I'm a victim of.
Oh, we all are. We're all doom scrolling. We're just scrolling for hours, and suddenly it's like, wow, it's 3 a.m. I could have sworn I just...
Exactly. One of my thoughts lately with just AI in general is there's this huge hype of it replacing art, be it, just traditional or drawings, paintings, songs. Of course, our line of work, deep fakes for actors. It seems to have such a big grip on any kind of art, rather than AI should be used for us to have an easier work life. That way we have more time to do art or philosophy or whatever it is that keeps us separated from normal animals, that keeps us evolved and stuff.
Yeah, if you keep it as a tool, there are very productive and positive ways to view it because it's really cool advanced technology and all that. But once AI becomes the artist itself, that becomes really tricky because it's taking human organic things and repackaging it. We have no legal recourse all of a sudden, and it's out there for, your kids' grandkids to consume 1,000 years from now.
Right. And so like from that, what is it that they make for themselves at the end of the day? So, what we do is a craft, and, it's something we're ever learning. They say like, if you, the saying of, if you don't use it, you lose it. So what happens if we just all of a sudden just give in to the AI vices?
Can this technology ever actually craft the subtlety of a performance? Yes, it can technically match lip flap better than any human could, and it can re-speech in any language and sound like that actor speaks fluently in whatever language it is. So technically it can be superior, except in the human organic performance. It's going to get closer and closer to that. I don't know if it'll ever actually reach that point, though.
Right. Like how would you train AI to perform sarcasm or something that includes subtext within it?
Right. People can hone in on that. They're smarter than we give them credit for. So it's like, this sounds kind of hokey. Sounds a little bit off. You could just tell when something's just a little bit off, the uncanny valley.
No, definitely. And seeing some of it, seeing the discussions just on Twitter today, someone did bring up how using voices or taking voices, like you were saying, from a dub and just putting it into whatever, that takes away our autonomy. And I feel like we need to be more hyper-aware because a voice, like our voice is very much like a limb. Technically, if you can't speak, people will consider that a challenge. It comes from our bodies, therefore, if you take it from us, you take that choice, you take away our autonomy.
I'm 54 and I never thought that I would be using the context of the word consent in this sort of way, where it's like, it's so much more than just in an intimate relationship or anything like, or cosplay is not consent, or, now we're going to say AI is not consent. You're going to start seeing signs like that.
I didn't think, we would just continue to have these discussions on like, hey, what all needs consent? Like, if it's not yours, don't. Simple. It's kind of an interesting world to come up in. Like, I'm in year 2 of my career, and so being able to see how things were before AI was coming up, and then now seeing now I guess also experiencing the pressure. It's interesting, but we're not out of the woods yet.
And it's only going to get deeper and darker and murkier. But hopefully by then, there'll be some legal precedents and we'll have some sort of recourse and protection built into either the verbiage in the contracts or maybe after the fact, because not everyone's going to dot their I's and cross their T's when they put their content out there. And we just have to, again, like I've said earlier, awareness is the most powerful weapon you can have.
And ignorance is not an excuse at that point, too.
Something social media has taught you. It's like everyone is on social media, even the people that hate it. It's kind of a necessary evil, especially as an actor, any entertainer. We have to have it because it's marketing. It's getting your word out there and connecting. You can also use it as a tool in a positive way to communicate clearly so more people understand how devastating this awesome technology in purity of itself on paper can easily be twisted.
For sure.
AI has come to the forefront in the entertainment industry for quite a few years now. The intro sequence to the Disney Plus Marvel series Secret Invasion, entirely AI generated. The human element completely wiped away. Indiana Jones, deep-faked to look like he's in his 30s or 40s like back in the day. But yet the voice coming out of him is 80-plus-year-old Harrison Ford. Let's hear what an online journalist has to say about AI. Here's Brian Penny.
So I wanted to kind of bring up AI outputs cannot be copyrighted or protected in any way. So the U.S. Copyright Office made this decision based off of visual art. There were 2 different cases that came through. One was a man named Stephen Thaler, who had built an AI machine and tried to get a copyright in the name of the AI. And then there was Christina Castanova, who had submitted an AI-generated comic. Christina is the one that's going to definitely come into play for everything, because what they did was, based off of her initial filing, they released an entire guidelines for AI-assisted or AI-generated content. And once that was revoked from her, her attorney immediately turned around and filed a different one that is basically based off of the case that if she were to create the input, that she should be able to copyright the output. And that case is going to be very, very, very important for what's going on here with voice actors, because if she were to actually get this copyright that she's currently waiting for, it means that they're saying that because she created whatever went into that thing, that she also owns what comes out of it. And that'll be the first kind of ruling of its kind related to AI that is saying that the person whose work is used is going to be able to grant some type of ownership on the output. If she is to win that, it's actually a good win for all of humanity, because it's going to be probably the decision that most affects you being able to actually own your voice as a commodity.
The source that you were reading that from, did it state at what point the court will be able to address this?
Well, it's not actually the court. It's the U.S. Copyright Office that's deciding this. So what happened was Christina had filed actually newer at the time when all this stuff was going on, filed a copyright for an AI-generated comic, and then went on Facebook last year and talked about it, and then it got into the media. So if you look up the copyrighted AI-generated art, she's the one who comes up for everything, because all the media jumped onto that. She was the first person anybody saw. And when it was granted to her because they didn't know that it was Midjourney. They didn't really understand what Midjourney was. It wasn't made clear. And when they turned around, that was last October. They turned around this year around March, I want to say it was February. That's when they revoked the copyright and gave a long public statement to make this like the case for any of the AI generated stuff in the media. And the guy, the Copyright Office in the email specifically said that he revoked it because she talked to the media about it. And he saw the headlines about AI being given a copyright, and he got a bunch of calls from reporters. And so they had to put a stop to it. And so it's because of this new one that she filed, because her whole thing is to try to legitimize AI art. There's a ton of cases right now that are being filed against OpenAI, Stability Diffusion, Midjourney, all these places for coding, for stealing it, for stealing writing, for stealing art, depending on what it is. And all those cases are very likely to be looking to the Copyright Office for their decision before they make them.
We've been talking about in the VO community, AI being a thing where it's not going to go away. We're just going to have to come to some sort of compromise where if the companies are at least going to be transparent and on the up and up saying, yes, we want to use this and we're going to pay you a licensing fee or residuals or royalties or whatever. And if you agree to that, then yeah, your voice is basically licensed out. What I foresee one possible outcome is people that are not actually working, they're voice actors, but because their voice files have been studied by the algorithm and new product is just being generated, they're not actually performing the craft anymore. They're simply receiving a paycheck. And, that's great to make a living and not really do anything. But I know creatively as an artist, no matter what kind of artist you are, you want to be able to create that art yourself, put that out there and have that autonomy and say, this is my voice. I performed it. It's not a machine doing it.
You also brought up something else that I very much loved, is that you caught on very quickly that it's not just about like the celebrities and the companies, all that kind of stuff. Average people need to worry about this. Like your actual data is very much tied to the same kind of principles as IP ownership. Like you should have ownership over your data. You should be paying attention to what's being used. But I didn't initially really pay much attention to the artist argument, like that is AI art versus regular art. But when it comes down to when I finally started digging into it and realizing it, I mean, it really is just data rights is what it boils down to. And your data, you should have a right over your personal data, regardless of whether you're a professional or not, regardless if it's monetized or not. Like we all really should have a lot more control over who we are.
Yeah, and when you're signing on to social medias or signing up for the first time, most people, I would hazard to guess, do not read the fine print and realize that data that they have to be willing to give up in order to be on that platform. So everyone's hopping on Threads and it's great, but boy, that's a long list of things that you're giving freely to Meta/Facebook to own. And, they're not in the EU yet because they're trying to fight against that long list of things.
Definitely. I was just telling somebody in Europe, in Britain, not technically the EU, but that same thing that like you guys are lucky that you have this GDPR. You're lucky that you have at least, I mean, it's not perfect, but you have something, because I live in Arizona. Nobody cares. I mean, if you're in California, you have at least a little bit of protection. In Arizona, there's nothing. Nobody cares. Nobody worries about our data in the state. I could just be exploited on every end, and the state does not. You're not caught up yet.
Yeah, and the average citizen probably doesn't have the patience or the due diligence or the discipline or maybe even the interest to look into their state laws. Do I have any sort of legal recourse if I want to protect my data on whatever platform it is?
Definitely. And then the other thing I really wanted to bring up was that, like, when you use up the example of James Earl Jones, for example, giving out the Darth Vader thing, that's cool for only James Earl Jones and for, I guess, the fans in a way. But it also really, really hampers how that whole series can grow, the development. When you look at James Bond, for example, imagine if just young Sean Connery was all we ever knew as James Bond. There's 10 other guys behind him that never would have ever had their career come up. That whole career option would have just been taken away, and we wouldn't have a lot of actors that we have right now. So as cool as it might be to have something like that, to have that Darth Vader voice anytime you want, it's really better for the community and for the art of itself, the content, to have new actors being able to play those roles, because otherwise it's just going to stagnate. We're going to not ever have anybody else break out.
Right. I see a lot of fans endorsing the idea of bringing the actor who plays Bucky, Winter Soldier. He looks like Mark Hamill. Why don't you just bring him in to play Luke Skywalker?
Exactly. There's always got to be some younger blood in there that's going to appeal to somebody. It's strange to me to think that I would be listening to the same band and watching the same actors that my dad did when he was a kid. I don't think that that's natural.
Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley from Kiss, they've talked about after we're long dead and gone, we're doing our final tour, but the brand could continue. It'll just have younger members, but they're all dressed in the same makeup and costume.
Someone took one of your character voices and made a song about it. You're the one who's ultimately going to have to go after them, even though it's the character's voice that they took. The studio's probably not going to go after that. Am I correct on that?
I would think because it's being projected to the public as a character that is copyrighted, not by the voice actor, but it's copyrighted by the rights holder. So I think it's wise to alert the studio. Like, I let Crunchyroll know as soon as I was tagged on Twitter about a YouTube channel and a TikTok channel that's generating anime characters doing rap songs. I mean, yeah, it's amusing to listen to, but I didn't do that content myself. I certainly didn't agree to anyone generating a rap song from my voice tracks, even though those original voice tracks aren't owned by me, but it is my voice. So I think it's very wise to get as many entities involved as possible to either issue a, hey, take this down, a cease and desist, or whatnot, because there may be people out there not doing it out of malice. They're doing it because, hey, it's fun, or it's funny, or they're doing it for the clicks, they're doing it for clout. Whatever the reason, it's a discussion that, fortunately, awareness is becoming a bigger thing now, so that discussion is being had by more and more people. The repurposing of your voice, it was taken from you. It becomes the Little Mermaid thing. It's Ursula stealing your voice, literally.
That's actually the perfect analogy for all of that.
Sure.
UK voice actor Kit Harrison.
I've been very fortunate to not have to grapple with AI related stuff so far, but I can only feel like it's going to be present in every contract going forwards. There's the potential for it. And I can only imagine that my agent and every agent is going to start drowning in a bunch of AI related paperwork going forwards. It feels like the way things are going, if some sort of legal line is not taken by government entities and entities in general.
It's like the Wild West. If you're recording on a project that's not sanctioned by the union, you have no union protection, and you're really on your own.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons I was so eager to join the union, not just, to kind of have that on my resume, but also like, it really feels like, you took the words out of my mouth. It's like having that kind of level of protection is vital, especially as there is, you can wake up one morning and there's a brand new, issue like we've seen over the weekend where something very serious could happen, where someone's voice can get used for any kind of nefarious purpose. Almost nothing you can do about it without horrors happening. So it's good to have the union on our side. It's emblematic of toxic discourse, I think, when this sort of thing happens. A lot of people, I do think, do it because they think it's funny. It's cute to have a character sing a song, but it's playing with someone else's voice and playing with their career. Violation is the word I saw used, and I think I agree.
This is only going to get more convoluted and darker, and there's probably going to be a lot more collateral damage, unfortunately. Again, we have awareness and empathy, and I couldn't believe I was just reading more threads regarding, we took down the videos and all that, but it's like, you're just anti-fun. Like, what?
I could talk for hours and hours about how it feels like we just want to have our fun at the expense of, it doesn't matter what sort of damage is done to the industry in the wake of the fun, right? I worry this is not just damaging the careers of existing actors, but also this is going to damage the burgeoning careers of new actors as well. Because when I'm browsing YouTube and I'm getting, in between getting spoiled for all the things on recommended videos and awful stuff I have to remove from my front page, I'm seeing AI voice memes. And I remember an era where new voice actors kind of cut their teeth on doing, funny reads of characters, doing impressions of Team Fortress characters, doing memes or whatever, any sort of anime fan dub. And now you see a lot of creators just kind of ignoring that and getting AI to do it. And so that's every time that happens, that's another new voice actor who's not getting behind a mic or buying a Blue Yeti in a charity shop or something. I think that's going to echo a lot through the future, and we don't even know how bad it's going to get.
For the people that are just starting their career now or will be in the next few years, I don't envy to be in that position.
No. There was a really funny Sonic the Hedgehog video a few years ago, and then Mike Pollock, our colleague, he had to release a video saying, look, I can't repeat what's been said in this video because I don't own the character of Dr. Eggman. I can't do this. At the time, I think everybody was nodding their heads and saying, that makes perfect sense. It's all copyrighted and it's his voice and it's, he can't be heard saying that. And now for some reason that lesson's been lost less than 5 years later because of these tools being available. It rattles the bones.
It creates a kind of edginess of paranoia. I was reading about Aaron Fitzgerald, who is a Twitch streamer and voice actress from Ed, Ed, and Eddie, many other things, super established, super sweet, very smart, gifted. She made a good point saying, I'm kind of afraid to do the voice in public for fans that are recording it because I'm afraid that'll get repurposed. Or, maybe even not with the knowledge of the person recording, just because their phone and the mic and the app permissions and all that, suddenly those audio files just go through the internet from your device somewhere else. You have no idea where it's ending up. And suddenly a character that she voiced is saying adult content. And then suddenly she can't get hired anywhere because everyone says, well, you can't prove that you didn't actually say this.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a fear as well, because we're even mercifully, we're in an era right now where the AI is distinguishable from a human artist. We can make fun of how many fingers an AI picture has, for example, until the cows come home. But then there will be a point when it is less than distinguishable, when this media and the controversy surrounding AI media is in the forefront. It's going to be dreadful if it's not already. And it is already.
Audio engineer, Coco.
I was going to say something about this, but I wasn't sure if I really had a dog in the fight because I'm not an actor. I think people are under the impression that AI can't replace the engineers. And maybe they can't. Maybe I'm just being a Virgo and being a spaz and worrying about stuff that I shouldn't be worried about. But I think that if AI can replicate the human voice and steal it from people and use it to do whatever, even though it hasn't mastered empathy and emotion, they could definitely replace people that can match flaps. They can automate that. You can automate anything. I used to be a virtual assistant for years. You can automate a lot of things. It's like that whole matter of time concept, I always feel really bad about the fact that some actors, this is what they do and this is all they do. Not everybody has something to fall back on. I'm fortunate enough to have something to fall back on, but not everybody does. So if this ends up happening and people get the boot because the union wasn't able to do something, or because this is just where the industry headed in that direction, what do? You shouldn't have to worry about things like this. You should just be able to make art and make an honest living. I mean, acting and voice work, you're not hurting anybody. You're just kind of living your life and trying to make art. And I've seen how this medium brings people together and it makes people happy, and sometimes it saves lives. And it's kind of like, damn, this is what I've been doing for... Some people have been doing this since... I'm only 27. Some people have been doing this my whole life, for longer than that. And it's like, okay, well, you don't get to do that anymore. 2020, whatever is the year that stops. And it just kind of sucks.
And last but not least, fellow voice actor from anime and video games, Mr. KG Tang.
I did want to just come up here and share a little bit of info I've found out, just to, not to make people feel better, but to, give a little perspective. Like, when these huge advances in technology, money-saving technology, time-saving technology, work-saving technology come, generally it's just a huge overbearing tide, right? There's not much you can do against it because the technology is here to stay. You can't put the genie back in the bottle, right? It's here. It's getting stronger every day, and it's going to keep moving forward in the future. However, I have spoken with a lot of engineers. You'd be surprised how many handlers at cons work in AI research and development. I've had the great pleasure of working with a few this year, and I've spoke with all of them about this AI tech, and I've asked them questions like, well, hey, what are the chances that AI is coming to replace Netflix and film in general, all that stuff? And there's always a pregnant pause, and they look at me and they're like, honestly, very high, right? So you have to think of it this way. And this, you can see this as a silver lining in all the ick. These engineers all claim that with our technology as it is, even our technology 10 years into the future, we simply don't have the hardware to 100% mimic a human. We just can't. It'll never happen with the current technology we have. Even the technology we develop in the future, it's just not possible. You're stuck around maybe 90-ish%. Sure. Right? You'll never get better than that. However, the problem is 90% of a tech that's more or less right now free to use is still 90%, right?
Yeah.
Movie tickets cost $20, right? Someone gives you an app that you can put some keywords into, and you can be like, hey, I want to see a Jet Li movie with Kevin Hart and, I don't know, The Rock, right? I want it to be a triple buddy cop movie, spit it out. Now, that movie that it spits out in the future, that's at that max capacity of 90% may not be perfect, may have some weird glitches and weird artifacts, and maybe they can't fully convince you they're human, but it's probably free. right? At that point, unless folks do what they always do and somehow learn how to monetize it and release like really crappy free versions out into the public like they always do, and they keep the really good ones for themselves. But generally, it'll be at a far lower cost than what you're paying for that movie ticket. And for many people out there, that's enough. 90% is enough for those folks. While this AI tech, I don't see ever like fully replacing humans because it just simply doesn't have the power to, I do see a lot of work being lost to this technology. Already in other countries, audiobook folks have already started being replaced by AI readers. Even in America, a lot of audiobooks are being now done by AI. Audio description is going. There's no way that stays, you know? There's no way humans continue to do that job. It's too easy to replace. We all have to sort of like look into the future and sort of see what's coming. Unless SAG has a brilliant idea, which I recommend them some ideas but never heard back. We're looking at a future where every NPC in every video game you play, the one-liner folks, you know, are all replaced by AI. I don't see AI fully replacing main casts of anything because I believe the blowback would be far too harsh for far too long. That's not profitable. So the classic proving grounds of like the NPCs and the Walla and all that stuff, that's going away. And what you're going to be left with is the top like 10% of actors who are already in everything anyway, who sell a product by just their name. They will double down and triple down on those actors. The folks who already have will continue to have, while those new to the business will flounder because there's no more proving grounds for them. And that's terrible. I have this dystopian view of like what SAG could possibly do, like a big SAG after databank of AI voices from all of us. It's like a second voice demo, right? You go and you get your voice demo, you make an AI demo of yourself, you have clients go to the database, they click on your name, they download your voice print, and then they pay you 75 cents to the dollar, like what other celebrities are already being offered for their likeness. Celebrities are being offered to be scanned, have their voices, faces, all that stuff for 75 cents to the dollar. And a lot of them who work a lot, that's a great deal for them. That's a huge, great deal for them because they can be working several jobs at once. Now, if SAG does something like that, it could stem the bleeding, but it's going to be an open wound from now on. I, for one, don't see a way out of it yet. I don't see this as avoidable. I see this as something we just sort of have to face head on and evolve with. Even that SAG database idea is hard because all these clients will still go to the top 10% of earners, the top 10% of names. They'll download their voices, right? Yeah. It's a very sticky situation for a lot of people, for a lot of jobs. And
who's the first to go in VO? Well, audiobook, the loop groups, the people doing Walla, because of that stuff so low in the mix, no one can make it out anyway.
Exactly. It's too easy to replace and too cheap.
Yep. And something like e-learning.
The educational software stuff, that's going for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're already hearing it because it's just a trend in TikTok. It's obviously AI voice where the intonations and everything is just wonky and kind of funny and campy and quirky and everything. But the people accept it. That's just what resonates.
Yeah, and even if it gets up to that like 90-95% ceiling cap, that's still 90-95%.
And I would think not just awareness, but fandom in terms of entertainment. They do have power in social media. All those studios and streaming services are listening. And if people catch on and say, you know what, I don't accept this. This sounds like a robot. And if I learn that it is a robot, I'm not cool with that. I want the person behind this doing it. I don't want you guys cutting corners and using the tech, which in and of itself on paper, yeah, of course, it's amazing. Yeah, we've seen those tech demos. They're out there. People can Google and see these amazing tech demos of here's Jack Nicholson speaking fluent Japanese on a scene from A Few Good Men saying, you can't handle the truth, but his mouth has been deep faked and the voice is totally Jack Nicholson cloned. Is the acting, is the nuance, is the subtlety there? And are people willing to accept that? Are they going to be happy with the 90% as opposed to 100% organic?
The pessimist in me says, yeah, people will be willing to accept the 90% for a much cheaper price. The pessimist in me thinks that.
The strike, which is look like it's going to happen, I don't know what kind of projects we're supposed to let go by the wayside during that, if any. Does anime or video games fall under that purview, or do we just throw our hands up and go, no, I'm not working at all on any project?
If these studios really really, really wanted an opportunity and a chance and a justification to start full-blown using this technology to pump out scripts, to pump out whatever, they would use this strike right now. They would tell people, hey, look, we don't have access to actors. We don't have access to writers. We have no choice but to use this technology. And in my heart of hearts, like if I were a horrible money-making person, that's exactly what I would do. I'd be like, look, they've given us no choice. Here is our AI art. It's this or nothing. And then people get worn down. Everyone gets worn down. It's naive to think that people wouldn't get worn down after a while. At some point, people will be like, well, there are no actors. There are no writers. I guess we'll watch this AI stuff. And that's how it starts.
There are a good segment of society that will just accept it. It's like, hey, it's good enough.
Yeah.
I could care less, that actors are out of work, writers are out of work. The content is good enough. We're going to be forced to find other skills to fall back on, or
trust me, bro, I've already started blacksmithing. All right, I'm starting to fill out my resume. my portfolio. I'm diversifying as
you're
we
not
speak.
going to just ride the convention wave as long as possible going, I'm the last human voice.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna try to do that for as long as I can, but you gotta find something else. I'm gonna go farm or something. I don't know. I'm gonna get some aquaponics together. When you started, did you have any inkling that you would be part of the last wave of human voice actors?
No, God, no. I didn't think we'd be dealing with a society where you could get a phone call from a scam artist claiming to be your long-lost uncle needing money, and you're wiring money to a spoof email, and suddenly your identity theft and your app permissions that you blindly accepted to be able to use social media, to be able to use smartphones, because it does make our life more convenient. It's like we dug our own grave. And on that happy note,
every voice actor listening right now, diversify your portfolios, everyone.
That's right. Learn a second skill. I mean, learn audio production. I mean, I guess still need someone to do the editing. I don't know the computers will be doing that in the next 10 years.
Bro, where is my AI that does my taxes for me? Why not that AI? And
AI is a tool. It's supposed to make our lives easier and more convenient, not take our lives, our identity, our self-worth, driving people off of social media platforms, being bullied by people with total lack of empathy and understanding. It's like, you guys are anti-fun.
No, tell you what, Kyle, if the inevitable happens, don't worry. I'm still going to use your voice in my Gohan AI characters, all right? I got you.
That's some pretty heavy stuff, man. How come your AI assistant hasn't chimed in on this subject?
Oh, you mean Fembot Betty?
Bam-ba-lam. Bam-ba-lam.
Well, the text-to-speech site I use to generate her voice, I totally can't find right now. I didn't find it appropriate to end this topic on a punchline.
You show some real emotional growth, dude.
We're off topic. Anyway, this is officially the longest episode of the Intergalactic Boombox yet, but I thought it was really important. I wanted to get it out there. Thank you, humble listener. If you like the podcast, you can support it with a Podcasting 2.0 app. Visit newpodcastapps.com. My personal favorite 2.0 app is Fountain. If you download Fountain from fountain.fm, it's on iOS and Android, you can actually get paid to listen to podcasts. Pool that in the little wallet in the app, and then you can share that back to podcasters. How much value did you get from the content? It's called Value for Value. You get to customize. So for more info, visit newpodcastapps.com. And feel free to check out the archive of this here podcast, the Intergalactic Boombox, on any podcast player. The show is on a hiatus, but it will return.
You sure about that?
Hey, I'm a voice actor. I talk to myself. I create my own characters on this podcast. I have to let these voices out of my head somehow.
Oh, so there's your therapy, mate.
Shiggles, hush.
Right, sorry.
Anyway, till next time, doodles.